Hi, welcome to A Minute with Mark. My name is Mark Cosgrove. You know, there's been a lot of surge in popularity about coaching lately. It's been something that I've been seeing in my training and coaching practice has really increased recently, probably because there's a lot of people who are really looking at, well, what can I do to be prepared? What can I do to make myself even more ideally situated in a very tough economy? You know, and it's also one of the few forms of development and learning that can still take place in lockdown situations because coaching can be done virtually. So there's been kind of an uptick in interest in coaching for sure. So I want to talk about coaching a little bit today. Now, we want to first distinguish between coaching as a relationship, like I'm your coach, you're the coachee, and coaching as a methodology. So, of course, coaching as a methodology, in other words, using coaching methods to help improve someone's performance or behavior, anyone can do that. There's no restriction. Your boss can coach you. Heck, your partner in life can coach you if you're willing to put up with it. And you can coach your children. Not every way of improving someone's performance or behavior has to be directive. In fact, we should probably save directive approaches for very specific situations. And as much as possible, use coaching approaches. So coaching can be used by anybody. There's no restriction and there's no limitation. But when we're talking about a coach and coachee relationship, a professional coach, usually in the realms of either executive coaching, meaning professional development, that kind of thing, or personal or life coaching. Now, although they're focusing on different aspects and different realms of our life, the methodologies are going to be quite similar. And the relationship is probably also going to be quite similar. So if we're talking about executive or professional coaching, something we want to kind of consider first of all. So think about a Venn diagram with 3 circles. So the first circle is manager. Okay, so that's management, that's what that looks like. And then the second circle is mentorship. And then the third circle is coaching. So when we talk about management, now management is a relationship between, you know, a superior and their subordinate. It's got a certain amount of authority in it. And when a manager tells a subordinate what to do, most of the time they have to do it. Now, managers can use coaching. Like I said, sure, a manager can coach their subordinate. But there's always that undercurrent, that underlying relationship of, you're my boss, and if you tell me to do something, I'm probably going to have to comply. So managers and management is a very particular kind of relationship. It's where the more senior person is responsible for the behavior and the outputs and the outcomes produced by the subordinate. And then the second circle on our Venn diagram is mentorship. So the relationship between a mentor and protege, and by the way, that's the real word, there is no word mentee. It drives me nuts. But anyway, so the relationship between the mentor and the protege is where, very similar, the mentor can use coaching. And in this case, the mentor might actually be a boss. They might actually be your senior in the organization, but they don't have to be. They could be another person in the same organization, or they could be someone else entirely. But a mentor's role and the mentor-protege relationship is where the mentor is a subject matter expert. So they can use coaching, but they can also give advice. And their advice is usually based on the fact that they know more about this than you do. So there's very much a teacher-student kind of role. Think of when we watch kung fu movies or something, you've got the sifu who's the kung fu master who's teaching the young hero of the movie how to be a master. So there's that kind of relationship with mentor and protege. And again, fantastic and amazing way to build and develop ourselves in our work. And then the third circle, of course, is the coach. So again, anyone can coach, the verb, but who is a coach as a person? Well, the coach and coachee relationship is usually a relationship where the coach is there to hold people accountable. So if you get a coach, that coach is going to help you set goals, help you clarify what those goals mean, lead you on an inquiry using a facilitated questioning model to help you gain insight into, okay, why do I have this goal? What does this goal mean to me? What's important about it? And so forth. And then furthermore, help you figure out what's in the gap between where you are today and where you want to be. Is it simple learning? Is it practice? Is it experience? Is there something more? Maybe there's something hidden from your view that you can't even see why you don't do what you want to do. Now, coaches, so that's what a coach does. A coach just helps you on that inquiry. So they help you set your goals, they help you figure out what those goals look like, dig down into the specifics, and then they help you take steps. A coach is somebody you will also make a commitment to, and then they hold you accountable to that commitment. The way I put it when I'm coaching my clients is, I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to make sure you do what you said you would do. Not because I think it's what you should do, but because you said it's what you should do. So if I'm coaching somebody on communications and we figure out that there's a particular gap for them, let's say it's how they plan meetings. They don't put enough work into planning. So they might commit to me that for the next 2 weeks they're going to, jot down a meeting plan prior to every single meeting that they hold. Great. 2 weeks go by. My first question is, what did you promise me you were going to do? And then we look into that. Did they do it? How did it work out? What kind of success did they have? Did it work out well? Did it work out badly? So on and so forth. And we kind of dig into it. So a coach helps you set goals, helps you make commitments, and then holds you accountable to those commitments. Now, of course, with a coach may teach a little bit. As there's some sort of differences of opinion as to how this can look. But quite often coaches will transfer some knowledge to their coachees, show them certain tools and techniques. But for the most part, we don't just, lecture and tell and say, okay, here's what you should do, here's what you should do. Then we're mentoring, and that's a different thing, or maybe we're managing. And so that's what it is. So the first thing you want to do, if you're thinking about getting a coach, is you want to understand those sort of 3 areas. Do I need a mentor? Should I just talk to my manager about how to get better at my job? Or should I get a coach? And what can that coach help me do? So then your job then as a coachee, say what you want professionally. Be willing to make commitments. And then be willing to be held accountable for those commitments. That's really it. And we just simply, every week or every 2 weeks, whatever the meeting is, we simply move forward on the goals you want. So how does it look? How does the conversation look? Well, a good coach will usually set aside, it's usually a 90-minute session, but what I do is I'll set aside like 2 hours so that, if we run over, I'm not like, tapping my watch and telling you to go away. So we have a little bit of time to really dig in. And a good coachee will also do the same. So turn off your phone, shut down your computer, email and whatnot, and get rid of distractions. You're paying good money to have this conversation, and you don't want to be distracted by other things. Another thing to think about is when you schedule it the same time, same day every week or every 2 weeks, and then make it regular. Don't have it be like, okay, we'll meet now, and then we'll meet in a month, and then a week later, and then 3 months after that. It's really hard to gain any kind of momentum if you're being inconsistent. So then we get on the call or we meet face to face if that's how it's happening. And then we just simply ask those questions. So what did you say last week or last meeting that you were going to do? And you tell me. You just kind of debrief, you kind of outflow, well, here's what I said, and this is what happened, and this is how my week has been. Great. And as a coach, I just listen to it. And I'm not there to commiserate. I'm not there to hold your hand. I'm not there to, to wag my finger or beat you up. Just kind of listen to what happened. And then we examine the promises you made. Okay. You said you were going to do A, B, and C. Did you? Now, believe it or not, that's actually one of the hardest questions for people to answer, because we are so highly trained to resist taking responsibility for things. I mean, we say, oh, yeah, well, no, but, I tried to, and that's just ridiculous, I mean, and your defense mechanisms come up and all sorts of things like that, and I remember one of my first coaches, when I said I tried to do something, she said to me, okay, Mark, try to stand up. And so then I stood up, and she said, no, Mark, I didn't tell you to stand up. I told you to try to stand up. And so then I didn't move, and she said, but you're sitting down. I didn't say sit down. I said, and the point she was making when I was kind of in my chair doing one of these was, there's no such thing as trying. There is doing it or not doing it. It's really a binary situation. And if you don't believe me, believe Yoda from the Star Wars movies, where he says to Luke at one point when Luke is trying to raise the X-Wing fighter from the swamps of Dagobah, and he says, I'm trying, and then Yoda says, do or do not. There is no try. my terrible Yoda impression, but it really is. So anyway, we get to that conversation and we say, okay, did you do it? Yes or no? So we get them there, and it might take 5 minutes to really get the coachee to admit they did it or didn't do it. And then we just look at what are the results we produced. Now the thing about a coach is, a good coach won't get involved in your drama, won't get involved either way, not in emotionally in any way with the drama of whether you did it or not. So you did it, great. If you say, yes, I did it, I said I was going to plan my meetings and I planned all the meetings, then we just look at, okay, how did that work out? What kind of result did you produce? Because as a coach, I don't care about being right. I care about helping you discover tools that are going to work for you. So if that tool worked, and by work, I mean produced a result that's consistent with what you said you wanted, then great, keep doing it. If it didn't work, okay, we can scrap it. We can look at why it didn't work. We can make sure you actually applied it correctly. So that's where the conversation goes. So yes, I did it, but it didn't work. Okay, great. Let's have a conversation about that. Yes, I did it and it worked. Fantastic. We throw a party. It's great. There's a little bit of celebration because we always want to, celebrate the goals. And then we move on and choose another thing we're going to try to do next week to further the game and move the ball further down the field, as it were. Option 2 is I didn't do it. Okay. So now we're into kind of a different space, which is, okay, why? And that can be some insight as well. Maybe it was too big of an ask. Maybe it was too large of a thing to try. It was too scary. So maybe we went, okay, so we bit off more than we could chew last week. Okay, no problem. Let's look. What got in the way? What was missing? What was the impediment? See, because the point really only ever is to look at the gap between where I am and where I want to be. If the gap is this big, maybe we just look at the first little piece of it. Okay, I didn't do a meeting plan because I was busy. Well, okay, great. Maybe it's a conversation about time management. I didn't write it down because I don't know how. Then maybe it's a conversation about learning a particular technique for planning a meeting. So we keep looking and looking and looking. And until we find something we can do, and we do it, we make some progress, and we move on and move on and move on. And over the period of a conversation, I mean, that's really what it looks like. I've boiled it down very quickly, but really what it looks like is somebody who's willing to listen to what it is you're up to and cause you to be really specific and cause you to be really honest with yourself, primarily, about what's happening. And then make some choices. What can we do? What's missing that if we put it in would help close the gap? What's in the way? Which if we took it out of the way would help open up the way forward. That's really all we're looking at. And so by really, utilizing that, and it's really a cycle, we just keep going around and around and around, we start to make some progress. And over time, you do make progress. And the gaps you want to close become easier to close. You can instantaneously, or at least very quickly, begin to see what's missing or what's in the way. So what you want to do when you look at coaching is, first of all, try to be as specific as you can with yourself and with the potential coach about what it is you're up to. Really be willing to examine. And the fact is, it might not be very comfortable at first to look and say, this is why I don't do that, or I don't do it as well as I'd like it to. And for many of us, as we reach a particular level of seniority, this is the first time we've reached the outer limits of our skill set. And that's a scary thought. You've always been good at what you do. In fact, that's why you've gotten to be as senior as you are. A few years ago, I was coaching somebody who later became a very good friend of mine in Hong Kong. And he was working for a very large investment bank, and he wanted to make it to a senior level managing director. He wanted to get there. And he'd been a wunderkind. He'd been this amazing star, risen very quickly through the ranks, was really good at what he did. And this was the first time in his life he had to confront not being good enough. And it was scary, and it was a little challenging. So make sure you pick a coach that's going to really listen for that and help you through that. And one who's going to, really help you, navigate even that emotional aspects of the conversation. And then make sure your coach is going to hold you accountable. You have friends, you have a spouse or partner or girlfriend or boyfriend. You have lots of people who will listen to your complaints and pat you on the back and say, "Oh, there, yeah, the world is terrible, and yeah, your boss is a jerk, or the economy is awful." You don't need to pay a coach to do that. What you need to pay a coach to do is say, "Okay, the economy is terrible, the world is difficult, your boss is a jerk, and you still want to make progress. So what are you going to do about it?" So it's someone who's willing to hold you accountable, and not let you off the hook with all sorts of reasons and excuses. So anyway, that's coaching. Very much kind of boiled down to well, it's not exactly a minute. It's more close to 15 minutes. But so if you want to learn more about coaching, if you want to have a conversation, absolutely reach out.